What is up? What is up, good people? It's Tipp Major. I'm here with my main man, Greg Kellogg, Hall of Famer. Greg, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, man, every time I hear that, boom, 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 I want to do a Tron Travolta, baby.
You know what, Greg? This is the Thursday check down. We've got our big guest, and literally, he's big. He's 6'8", 6'9", big disco. He's coming on in just a few moments. But I want to ask you something, Greg. Do you know what's significant of September 5th? What's the significance behind that date?
That's got to be kickoff for week one, isn't it?
And we got 91 days until it, guys. Almost little over 3 months until football. Less than that, actually, until we see football, but until it's actually recorded in the system, in the books, 91 days. So I can't wait. But let's get to our guest.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. You talk about football. I think Disco's an offensive tackle, man. 6'8", 320. Disco, did you play football?
Well, once upon a time, are we live? Is this thing on? Or okay. Just
by the way, those who don't know, that is Disco's stick for his show. Every time are we live? Is this thing on? Yeah, and he's the one that turns it on, so he knows.
I mean, I will say I am 6'8", 320 pounds, and I'm a modern day Neanderthal. So technology and I don't really get along. So the fact that I'm navigating, thumbnails and a live stream and reading chats and all, it's an absolute miracle. I really am doing, miracle work over here. So yeah, that's why I always got to double check to make sure we're live. And if that thing's on, it's genuine. It's genuine. It's real. It's real.
It's real. And Tipp, you're the guy that's going to run the show tonight. What are we talking about?
We are talking draft strategies, guys. I mean, we're right in the middle of drafting season. I know Big Draft Energy's been doing a lot of drafts. He's talked a little bit about that, but we are right in the middle of it, and we're going to talk about different strategies.
But there's so many. I mean, you've got my favorite, which is stud running back. You've got hero running back. You've got zero running back. You've got best player available. You've got, redraft leagues. You've got keeper leagues. You got dynasty leagues. You got Disco's favorite, best ball leagues, where he drafts and forgets. We got to cover it all tonight, and we've only got an hour to do it. So why don't you kick it off, Tipp?
Well, you know what? We're going to kick this thing off. But before we do, we got to give our guests a little bit of shine. We got to give them some time. Hey, Big Draft Energy. Disco is what I like to call him. Disco, talk to us a little bit about yourself. Give us a quick background, and then we'll get right into it.
Oh, man. God, way to put me on the spot. I really don't like talking about myself whatsoever. I used to play ball, used to coach ball here in Canada. I am from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I'm a big fella. I love the game of football. I've been playing fantasy football my entire life. Up until 3 years ago, I want to say I became a DFS pro. So I really am big on DFS. So I had to find a way to transition from, redraft leagues, but also scratching that itch to get my fantasy football drafts in, because, we all want to draft a million lineups. But when it gets to, the week-to-week basis where you have to make last-minute lineup adjustments, if you have like 100 redraft leagues, which I personally was in 100-plus redraft leagues 3 years ago, it becomes very time-consuming. So to take my DFS stuff to the next level, I had to discover best ball and drafters fantasy. It's where you literally just draft it and forget it unless you're winning a really, really life-changing amount of money. I've already done 107 real money drafts so far since the NFL rookie draft on drafters fantasies. So yeah, that's a little bit of me, a little bit of my background.
So Daily Fantasy Sports, DFS, explain that a little bit. Just take a minute and tell us what it is and how you make money at it.
Okay, so you could be like a big shark or a baby shark to do. And like
I knew that was coming. I was waiting.
Yeah. So essentially, as opposed to doing a full-on fantasy draft, a full-fledged fantasy draft where you select your lineup on a week-to-week basis or for the entire season, every week, or you can even do like Thursday night slates or Monday night slates or Sunday night slates or the entire Sunday slate, which is the one I personally love doing. I really, really enjoyed doing that. You get a salary cap. I do it personally on Owner's Box, but you could do it on FanDuel and everywhere else. You get a salary cap, and within that salary cap, you have to fill a roster. And if you're like a spectacular player with a really good matchup, like Christian McCaffrey, your salary is going to be all the way up there. And if you're like a God, who is a nobody? If you were DeMarcus Robinson, for example, right, your salary would be very low. But in the last 6-7 weeks, those guys, those tertiary players, those guys who aren't, the pay up options, they come in super clutch. So you can get access to a CMC against a really good matchup, or so you can get a CeeDee Lamb in a really good matchup, and you can get your stacks. And whoever finishes with the most fantasy points within that budget, amongst thousands, like you're talking 100,000 contestants, wins the grand prize, the pot that whatever pot you're playing for, whether it's the big shark pot, which I compete in, or the baby shark pot, which is cute. So yeah, that's DFS, and Drafters actually has a form of DFS where instead of the salary, you're in a 6-man queue. And it's a snake draft, right? So you just get to draft the guys you want in a 6-man draft, and same concept, same theory, just not dealing with the salary. It's just a straight up draft, way less time consuming, and it's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah. And how much do you win in the drafters one?
How much
can you win?
So the biggest pot is 15,000 that I saw last year for one of the Sunday slates. That's the biggest pot I saw in drafters. Biggest pot I saw on Owner's Box was over 150,000, but you're looking at like a $50 buy-in per lineup, right? So it's definitely an investment. If you don't have the money, obviously don't do it. And if you have a gambling problem, seek help.
Agree with that.
100%.
So, Tipp, what's the first draft strategy or the first league type we're going to talk about?
Well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about best ball, because that's what Big Draft Energy is doing right now. That's a lot of, what he's got going on. So we're going to talk about best ball strategies. So to kick it off, let's talk first about what best ball is. Best ball is an actual game or fantasy game where you can draft your team and you set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about changing your lineups. You don't have to worry about, am I going to play this player? Whoever scores the most points, you get those points, and they tally up at the end of the week or the end of the game, and those are the points that you get. So, Big Draft Energy, talk to us a little bit about why you like best ball so much, and what are some strategies that you use in it?
So I know it's very nuanceical, like it's a very small nuanceical difference, but there's best ball and there's what we do, which is best ball tournaments, right? The best ball tournaments are completely different than regular best ball, even though it's the same drafting format. Essentially, the first question was, why do I love best ball and what kind of strategy do I utilize? Why do I love best ball? Because I get to scratch that itch of drafting in the off season and not have to worry about setting my lineups and focus on making more money in DFS. And then come the end of the fantasy season, I open up the Drafters app and always happy. It's a very merry Christmas or a happy New Year, depending on when the week 17 is done. And I see how much money is in my account, which is always really, really good. And then the next thing you want to do is, okay, well, I won this much money. There's a playoff best ball tournament. I'm gonna go ahead and max that joint out and move on and keep doing that. So that's why I like best ball. It's very convenient. Redraft, I wanted to go down to 1 to 2 this year, and so far I have not stuck to that. It's tough, but I'm at 5, so I'm really proud of myself. Like we've cut down redraft leagues a lot. As for strategy in best ball, especially our tournaments here on Drafters Fantasy Sports, it's kind of like one of those things where it's, you got to know where you're eating, right? You can't go to a sushi joint and want to order a steak, right? Like, and have like a spectacular steak. It's not going to be good, right? You can't be a Canadian, who drives over in the U.S., and we're used to 60 kilometers an hour or 175 kilometers an hour on the highway, and your highway or your freeway is 75 miles per hour. It's like, we're not being efficient by going 75 kilometers an hour. It's like trying to, cut a steak with with chopsticks. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, why it says chop in the name, why is it not chopping? You got to know where you're drafting, and you got to adjust to where you're drafting. It's very I think it's like a very broad question.
You tend to draft wide receiver heavy when I've watched your drafts. When I draft them, I'm still going to be a running back guy. But what I'm looking at in best ball that's different from redraft, I want the guy that's going to be there all year. I want the guy that's going to get the opportunities. I would prefer him to be flat. I don't really want the spike weeks.
Right. You want
now, in
consistency.
best ball, the spike weeks can really help you. So how much do spike players that 1 week they may not score, they may score 3 points for you, but the next week they could hit 30. How much does that play into your personnel selection?
It doesn't. It doesn't. At the end of the day, when I look at the analysis of, for example, players who finished in the top 50, that's not a quarterback in PPR format, I look at, okay, where were they drafted at? What position were they drafted as? And where did they finish in the season? And then when I measure that, and the statistics are, it's the last 5 years, especially on drafters, have been borderline the exact same. For example, last year, if you look at the top 50 running backs who were drafted, the top 50 running backs who were drafted in the offseason, how many do you guys think finished in the top 50 in PPR?
I would guess at least 30.
Tip, your guess?
I would say 42.
Okay. Out of top 50 in general, like, so it could be tight end, it could be
running back.
Oh, I thought you were talking just running back.
No. So like the top 50 running backs, okay.
I'd drop it down to 20.
Okay. So out of the top 50 running backs that were drafted in the top 50 last year, 7 of them finished in the top 50.
Okay.
7 of them finished in the top 50. And then there were 17 running backs in general in the top 50. That's a non-quarterback, right? How many wide receivers that were drafted?
That's where I was going to say 42. 42 receivers. It has to be high because it's a receiving game.
Okay, so if we got 17 running backs,
yeah,
you're talking about out of the top 50 players drafted among any position. How many of those top 50?
Other than except for quarterback,
right?
Yeah. Okay. So let me rephrase this. Okay. So because it is a little bit long-winded. So out of the in the preseason, right, when you were doing your drafts for your season, right, out of the top 50 in ADP at the wide receiver position, or running back position, or tight end position, I'm asking how many of those who were drafted in the top 50. So like if you look at last year's draft, for example, CeeDee Lamb was round 10, first round pick, for example. So if you're just looking at it in the grand perspective, based off of where they were drafted early on and where they finished, that's my question. So in the top 50,
I think it would have to be receivers that were well above that, because you have so many injuries in the running back position. You have so many two-headed monster teams in the running back position. But tell us the number. What is it?
Okay. I'm going to tell you, Tip. It's going to be lower than you think, because I'm doing that running back wide receiver study, and Doug Orth has already returned his 2020 stats to me. And of the people that were drafted in the first 5 rounds, I think 8 or 9 didn't finish in the top 24 at their position. Yeah, so out of the top 50, I would say out of the top 50 drafted players, and assuming out of the top 50, probably 30 of them, 35 of them are wide receivers, I would say probably about 10 to 12.
Incorrect. So out of the top 50 who were drafted last year, that finished in the top 50 at the wide receiver position was 23. There was 4 tight ends and 17 running backs. Here's where the numbers start really making sense, especially for your robust RB build. if you're looking at how many RBs that were drafted as a top 5 running back last year and compared to how many wide receivers that were drafted as a top 5 in the drafts last year and saw how many of them finished, you will see that in the top 5 wide receivers, there was 2, whereas in running backs, there was 1. If you wanted to go bully RB, RB start, you know what I mean? And we all know who that one running back is. It's obviously CMC, right? Now, if you were to talk about the top 10 wide receivers drafted early on, right? Where were they drafted based off of ADP and where they finished? How many of those wide receivers finished in the top 10? You got 4.
Okay.
How many running backs do you have finishing in the top 10?
1.
1.
Yeah.
1.
1, yeah.
CMC. Okay? So out of 10 rounds, or out of the first 10 picks, the first 10 running backs, only 1 of them finished in the top 10. Means the value that you're getting going with a robust RB build is not going to be extended all the way down, because we already said that there was 23 wide receivers that were finished in the top 50, that were top 50 picks that actually finished there. Even if you go scroll up to 25, for example, there were 10 wide receivers that were drafted in the top 25 in the offseason last year that finished in the top 25 this year, or that finished the season in the top 25. There was only 7 running backs. What does that tell you? Between the first 10 running backs and the other 25 running backs, that's where the value is. That's where they finish. And if you follow that pattern and that historically throughout fantasy football in the last 5 to 6 years, you will see that you get the value and the top placements and the top finishes at the running back position later on. So it's not that I don't value the running back position. I feel like people like myself value the running back position so much that we want to get it at a really good discount and a value, and we want to project who's going to have a really good season and not invest on last season, because running backs are an absolute depreciated value. Right. So when I talk about strategy, it could be like, oh, well, like I like 0 RB. I like, bully tight end. I like elite QB. I like robust. It really is all indicative of who I think is going to finish as a top player in that position that comes to when it comes to my pick, that's going to finish in that tier.
Well, it's all in who you feel like is going to surprise. And so I did a best ball draft a couple of weeks ago. And I went Bijan Robinson. I went Travis Etienne, first 2 picks, because I just feel like the value of both of those players were there at that situation. And when I came around in the 3rd pick, I was like, all right, I got to go wide receiver. We all know wide receivers are deep. But guess who was right there? Josh Jacobs. I feel like Josh Jacobs has an opportunity to be a top 5 running back in that offense. As long as he stays healthy, he has an opportunity. So I said, yo, what the hell? I'm going to take Josh Jacobs. So that's where I went really, really heavy. I went against the grain of what I usually do, go wide receiver heavy. I went running back heavy. So I see where you're coming from because of the value and because of, you wanted to make sure you look at the value. But I will say another thing too, with a lot of these teams going 2 running backs, look at a team like Detroit. And I can't believe I'm talking about it, Greg, but look at a team like Detroit,
Michigan,
who has 2 running backs who, if both of those guys stay on the field, can be very viable to your team.
You have that more than just Detroit, Tip. There are several teams that share carries. Every team shares carries somewhat. It used to be back in the day, there was this thing called the curse of 370. Aaron Schatz talked about it back in 2004. And basically he said if a running back gets 370 carries, the next year he's going to fall off the face of the earth. Well, I changed it from carries to touches because running backs are used a lot more in the passing game now, and you're still getting hit when you catch the ball. So I did the study back, I think, 2021, and it still holds true today. The difference is you don't have that many running backs getting 370 touches. Do you know how many running backs got 370 touches last year?
Well, I do know that Christian McCaffrey had 21 touches per game. And I mean, we could do the math.
He did not get 370.
He did not get. I think you want to say it's like 339 or something like that.
Nobody got 300.
Nobody got it. Yep.
Nobody got 340 touches last year. Now McCaffrey did get 370 touches one year, and the next 2 years he was injured.
He was injured.
Okay, if you look at it, the last 2 years, not counting last year because nobody did, but 2022, 2021, a total of 4 running backs hit that level. Every one of them dropped. They ranged in age from 22 to 20. I want to say 28. Derrick Henry had the smallest drop of those people, and he was the oldest. Josh Jacobs missed games. Derrick Henry didn't miss any games. He just dropped about 18% from his previous year's scoring. Everybody thought Henry had a bad game last year, but if you look at what he did in 2022, he had too much work. So I expect Henry to bounce back this year. Again, you had Taylor and who was the other one? I don't remember. I wrote it up. It's in Twitter. Go find it. But let's get back to strategies a little bit. Are you saying, Disco, that you're more of a best player available at ADP? Because I know you always emphasize that I'm reaching on players because I take them before ADP. I don't care about ADP as much as I use ADP as a guide. I want this guy. I'll wait till a round before he's due to come off, but I'm not going to let somebody snipe him by waiting till his ADP time. How about you?
So the good thing about best ball tournaments, and I should put an emphasis on the concept that this is a best ball tournament where you're trying to get contrarian when you build 150 lineups to max out the tournament so you have a better shot at, maximizing the amount of entries and drafts you've put into into the money, so you win more money at the end of the season by maxing out like that. I want to take a step back, then I'll answer your question. I answered my why as to why I like zero RB or hero RB, and then Tipp, you mentioned that you took 2 RBs early on, and Greg, you obviously love the robust RB start. So can I also ask you guys a question? Why do you guys start drafts with 2 RBs?
Okay, no, look, now I will say this. My strategy usually is wide receiver heavy. I usually go wide. In this case, I was drafting like 7 or 8, and I saw Bijan Robinson, and I feel like Bijan Robinson is one of those players. I know Tyler Allgeier's there, but he's one of those players where he gets catches. He can get, receptions. Same thing with Travis Etienne. And those types of values, those are the types of running backs that if you're in a PPR league or a PPR setting, that's another thing. You've got to know your settings. You've got to know what type of league you're in. If you got a player like that, Bijan Robinson could easily get 40 to 50 catches in a year. Travis Etienne could get 30 to 45 catches in a year. So that's where
they were a safe bet.
They were a safe pick. That's where I was looking.
That's why people go robust RB, because it's a safe pick. You have a safe floor. You have a lot of volume. You have a lot of opportunity, especially because there's not 5 running backs in that running back room. And if they are, it's either a handcuff or a RB2A or 1B kind of deal, right? I say that to say this: in the best ball tournament platform, you're competing against 186,000 other people. So if you start off with a safe floor and say, hey, I'm going to push wide receiver and try to get the values at wide receiver later, that's good for redraft, right? Because in redraft, you can obviously adjust your lineup and you can play the matchup game, and you could put in best ball, you need to make sure that all 10 positions that you have rostered, whether it be your backups that you draft for depth or the starters that you've invested in, you need to make sure that they score most points total at the end of the season. So that's why, the safe, robust RB start, it makes sense in standard format, in redraft league. It makes sense in underdog because underdogs have PPR. But if you're talking about PPR, if you're talking about best ball tournament format, not just best ball, but best ball tournament format, you want to reach for the ceiling and you want to have the highest ceiling as your floor. And that's how you win the tournament, because it's most points total. So I just figured I'd go back to that point. And to answer your question, Greg, the reason why I like to play the ADP game is because it dictates where values fall to you. And if the good value falls to you, those are the guys you want to invest in, because later on, you're not going to have access to them.
Right.
Fair enough. No.
Well, let's move forward. We talked a lot about best ball, which is good because best ball is one of the popular games right now. A lot of people are playing best ball leagues, best ball tournaments. It's become very popular. So I'm happy we talked about that first. Let's switch to Superflex, because this
Okay.
is something that I've been a lot into getting into. I know this is one of Greg's favorite, but Superflex. And what I'll give you a strategy of mine real quick, and then we'll go to Greg, and then obviously you, Disco. Real quick, if I don't have one of the first 4 picks and I can't get one of those first stud quarterbacks, I'm going to the next available, wide receiver, running back. I'm possibly going to go to wide receiver. And then because I feel like the quarterback position is so deep that you can get yourself 2 solid quarterbacks, hell, 3 solid quarterbacks, and still be okay if you don't get one of the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, one of those guys, even CJ Stroud now. But so I did that in a league. I was able to get Trevor Lawrence, who I think is going to have a bounce back year this season.
What was the scoring format? Was it PPR standard?
It was PPR. It was PPR. It was a PPR league. And
Okay.
that's where I think that's where you have to make the differentiation. What are your thoughts are? If you're in a 2 quarterback league, we'll go to you, Disco. Do you feel like you have to go quarterback first? Because you see a lot of them that just go quarterback first.
Well, like the same way it's foreign, because like I said earlier, like if you're going to a sushi spot, don't order the steak, right? You don't want the ribeye there. They're known for sushi. Get the sushi. You got to draft and eat where you're drafting and eating, so to speak. So if you're in a super flex, that obviously means that QB is the premium, right? So it makes sense to invest in a premium quarterback like a Josh Allen and whatnot. Personally, in my super flex experience, which has never been like great or ideal, I always stick to what I know, which is the best ball PPR format. If I hear PPR, I go receivers, try to push the value later. If a Joe Burrow or Jordan Love or Trevor Lawrence or a Bryce Young fall to me in rounds 5 and 6, absolutely. If you're going to give me Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, CMC completely free all day, every single day. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that you go QB to start, but personally, I can't see myself doing that. It irks me. I can't do it. I'd much rather go with, the best wide receiver, best running back available.
Is it because of depth at quarterback?
I mean, last year there was 32 starting quarterbacks and then 17 injuries. So that's another additional 17 injuries as well. And if it's not best ball format, that means the waiver wire is going to be absolutely busy. So Gardner Minshew in a lot of superflex leagues last year was a league winner, and he came in and he filled in for Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Exactly. And down the stretch, what was the name of the kid that replaced Joe Burrow? Down the stretch, he was fantastic.
Browning.
Yeah, Jake Browning was absolutely exactly over 50 quarterbacks started last year. So if it's not best ball format, by no means am I reaching for a quarterback, because that position gets absolutely pounded, and the waiver wire, there's a reason why there's fab or waiver wire order set as is, and there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league, and if somebody wants to hoard 4 quarterbacks, by all means, good for them.
All right, Greg, so tell us a little bit about your
I look for point differential. What player is going to separate himself from you got to look at your starting requirements. If you're not required to start a tight end, then guys like Kelsey and Laporta drop in value. Mm-hmm. They become basically wide receivers, and basically second tier wide receivers, guys that are outside the top 12 wide receivers. So if you do have to start a tight end, their value skyrockets, because historically Kelsey has scored 50 to 60 points more than the number 2 tight end. That's a huge difference maker. So last year in a super flex, I took Kelsey with the 5th pick overall. This year, if CMC drops to me anywhere in the first round, I'm taking it.
I respect
because he makes a point differential, and he didn't get 370 touches, so I don't worry about it. Now, that said, because I don't like Superflex because it creates an artificial shortage of the position.
I feel like that's where the Swifties play.
Well, yeah, everybody in the world wants to have bye week coverage. And and I'm assuming 12-team leagues, because that seems to be the standard. When you have a 12-team league, you're going to have 8 teams that do not have bye week coverage for that second quarterback. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you can pick them up like Disco said, on the waiver wire. But at the start in the draft, you're starting off with people with only 1 or 2 quarterbacks because somebody's going to draft 4. Somebody's going to draft 5. It happens every league. Right. So do I take a quarterback in the first round? Not necessarily, but I probably take 1 in the second round and 2 by the 5th round. I want to have at least 2 by the 5th round. So it does affect my valuation and my draft strategy, because typically, and Disco can testify to this, when I did my $2 draft with him before, 3 of my first 4 picks were running backs. And I think I got Jonathan Taylor, I want to say Bijan Robinson and Derrick Henry. So with 2 starters and a flex, I've got running backs covering those 3 positions every week.
Yeah, and you got 3.
But I'm just going to tell you, my wide receivers are dependent on breakouts. I've got to have guys like Kirk, Jacksonville.
Christian
Kirk. I got to have guys like Christian Kirk step up and do what they're capable of. Mm-hmm. If they don't, I'm not going to win. I'm just not going to win with that lineup. But, to me, it comes down to old school. When it comes down to valuation, look at current drafts, and you're going to find 8 or 9 in non-superflex, 8 or 9 wide receivers going in the first round. You're going to get another 7 or 8 in the second round. Mm-hmm. That means your top wide receivers are gone by round 2. So if you don't get one, you're probably not going to get one. And another thing, look at consistency year over year at the position. Every year for the last 5 years, whoever finished as the leading scorer at the position became the ADP 1 at the position the next year. Mm-hmm. Every year.
And never repeated.
Well, yeah, the closest was Devontae Adams, who finished second the following year. So drafting him as the first wide receiver, and he finishes second, not a bad deal. But most of them actually suffer quite a bit. And so everybody going out on CD Lamb this year, I think you're making a huge mistake.
I know Bayou Bengal definitely agrees with the RB sentiment. I know that for a fact. He loves his RBs.
All right, so I want to thank everybody, first of all, for joining in. Appreciate all you guys. We see some royal loyals up in here. But I want to give a couple shout-outs. I see the Sports Addict Network. He said, so Rico Dottle should be my number 1 running back, LOL. I know he's being a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But, yeah, no, that's what we're saying. We're saying that, you could possibly wait on some of these running backs because a person like Rico Dottle could come out of nowhere, could emerge out of nowhere and be a league winner for you at the end of the year.
No, he won't.
And then,
he won't. Because Ezekiel Elliott's going to get all the goal line touches.
But if Ezekiel
all
gets
the valuable touches go to Zeke.
But if he gets hurt, Greg, if Zeke gets hurt,
then you have a situation. How big is Dowdle? How big is he?
Dowdle's bigger than Deuce Vaughn.
Well, Deuce Vaughn's 165.
Yeah, so it's going to be one of those situations.
Ari, you see what you started? He's so facetious all the time. He's so facetious all the time.
And then I see my guy Pete Sandoval. He said, "I really think Joe Burrow is going to have a season to remember."
Agreed.
I want to. We could possibly.
Well, Disco thinks Jamar Chase is this year's number 1 wide receiver.
Oh, I love Jamar Chase.
Number 1 player, period.
I love.
Well, I don't agree with that, but I do believe number 1 wide receiver, and for that to happen, Joe Burrow's got to have a big year.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, guys. If you could go out there, subscribe to the TSA, subscribe to our channel, please. That helps us out so much. And also follow these great individuals that you have on our screen. Now, I mean, you can follow me. I'm okay. I'm cool. But these other 2 gentlemen, Greg Kellogg and Big Disco, Big Draft Energy, please give these guys a follow and continue to just support
and follow each other in the chat too. If you see people in the chat,
I like that comment. I like that.
Well, the bottom line is that anybody that takes the time to come and watch a podcast loves the hobby. And you never know. I did not know Disco before this year. He didn't know me before this year. I did not know Tipp before last year. Tipp came onto my show 2-3 weeks in, I think. Mm-hmm. And he is now, it is not my show. It's our show. And when I go overseas next year, It is Tipp's show, and he's going to keep it warm for me when I come back. But let's go over to, is there a difference in your draft strategy between a dynasty league, a keeper league, and a redraft? And let me say the keeper league is 3 to 5 keepers, nothing huge. Dynasty is everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And also with the dynasty league, one thing that I've noticed that I like, IR, you have an IR that you can place injured players on, which use it. If you've got it, use it. And you have a taxi squad, usually for the first 2 years. Mm-hmm. And like I put Will Levis on the taxi squad in a dynasty league last year. Right now, he and Tyjae Spears are on my taxi squad. Will I activate them? Maybe. I don't need to activate Levis because I've got Tua and Jalen Hurts as my starting quarterbacks, and it's only a 1 quarterback league. Mm-hmm. But I've got him there, and I'll tell you what, I'm drafting a rookie quarterback this year, and get ready, JC. It's going to be a Michigan quarterback. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. Yeah. Ohio State wins in their dreams.
But yeah, I mean, let's talk about the strategies. I mean, yeah, definitely. From a standpoint, where what are you looking for in those types of leagues, Big Disco?
Before I say anything, I want to shout out Bayou Bengal Fantasy Network. This guy's absolutely brilliant. I think you guys would have a hell of a time having him on your show.
Okay.
He would just a second. Bayou Bingo, if you have a favorite NFL team, we are booking right now for our in-season shows. And what we're looking for is somebody that is playing on a Thursday night. If your favorite team's playing on a Thursday night, reach out to me, and I will book you on that Thursday night if it's not already taken. Our regular season show is a little bit different than this one. This is a little more freeform. During our regular season show, we're going to pick a stud to sit. We're going to pick a bench warmer to start. I call it Put Me In Coach, in tribute to John Fogerty's center field. And we're going to talk about news and notes. And then we have a unique segment called This Day in History, where we take something that happened on that day in history and then correlate it to fantasy football. And the correlation sometimes is pretty damn weak.
It is, or pretty damn funny. I mean, it's just.
Well, I try to be funny,
or something you don't know. But anyway, we're gonna keep going, man. But yeah, Bayou Bengal, shout out to you. I knew Who Dat Nation. I knew we had somebody in there from Bayou. If it's gonna be Bayou Bengal, I had to know that. So anyway, so let's keep going with this draft strategy talk. Go ahead. I mean, big Disco.
It's all good. Also, Bayou, I'm excited to meet you at the expo as well. Can't wait. So it really is all dependent on before I answer anything, it always got to be I got to know if it's a PPR standard or if it's half PPR, because that changes absolutely everything, right?
Well, I assume PPR. Yeah, okay. I realize half PPR is growing in popularity, but for me, it was always standard or PPR. That was the only two when I started. So
So if we're talking about PPR and PPR in general, I'm looking for doesn't matter where I'm picking. I'm looking for a young wide receiver who is going to ball out this year and for the next 3 to 5 years to come. Right. So once again, Jamar Chase. Go ahead.
I was going to say, who's your rookie this year that you're looking for, or second year player?
So my rookie this year that I'm looking for, my favorite rookie this year it was Malik Neighbors, but he went to the Giants, so he's dead to me. Absolutely. Just
no Daniel Jones love.
I mean, I think Daniel Jones is going to outperform his ADP, but I also think he's absolutely awful for a wide receiver one. There's a lot of mouths to feed there, including Theo Johnson, my guy Theo Johnson.
Fantasy Pros on their podcast this week basically raised a stat that I was unaware of. Daniel Jones has never had a wide receiver one that finished higher than 25.
Yeah.
Wide receiver 25.
Yeah. So had he landed with the Chargers, I'd be all over Neighbors. It would have been Neighbors all the way, but Chargers went Joe Alt. So it is what it is. Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously, he's the very attractive draft with your 101 or 105 pick, but I don't want him this year because the fallout of drafting somebody that high and he doesn't perform or he's not up to expectation is too terrifying, right? If it's like your rookie draft, fine. But if it's a startup dynasty, I don't want him. The only rookie wide receiver I really, really want that I'm willing to invest in, especially at ADP.
Joe Burrow's kid. It's Joe Burrow's kid.
It's not, but I do want investment in Jermaine Burton as well. It's that kid, Thomas from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Brian Thomas, yeah.
Okay.
Because,
they crowned her ass.
exactly.
How about Brad McConkey, man?
I like McClunky.
He landed in the perfect spot, right?
Well, I don't know if it's perfect, Greg, because he's got Joshua Palmer, you got Quinton Johnson, but here's the thing, real quick, because I knew his name was going to come up sometime. You got Greg Roman and you've got Jim Harbaugh. What are they going to do? They are going to run.
No, they are going to win. Look at Harbaugh's history, even in going back
by
to
running the ball.
Now, he also throws the ball when he needs to. Harbaugh does what it takes to win. Now, the fact that he could win by running the ball at Michigan has everybody scared to death. Everybody's scared to death. But, I got to tell you, I would not be surprised if Harbaugh doesn't get that Chargers team, get ready for this, JC, to the playoffs.
Playoffs?
Hey, I'm sorry.
Joe Morrill is classic.
We interrupted you, so go ahead, bro.
No, it's perfectly fine. If you're talking about the Chargers and you want to kind of fade the Chargers passing game and receiving game because you think that they're going to run, the team that passed the ball the least last year threw the ball 30 times a week, right? So there's still a lot of volume to be out there, right?
My thing on McConkey is more of the opportunities.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm being on Neighbors. I think Neighbors is going to get. I think Neighbors is going to get a lot of opportunity, a lot of targets. But I think Brian Thomas hands down is the guy.
So it would be a disservice for me to say that he's not going to get a lot of opportunity because Deebo Samuel, on one of the teams that ran the ball the most, him and Ayuk, both 8. They were both spectacular wide receivers in a team that liked to run the ball. Amon-Ra St. Brown and friends, all 8 on a team that absolutely loved.
Josh Reynolds had a good year.
Absolutely love to run the ball, right? So to fade somebody because a team's going to run a lot, maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago, it's 4 yards and a cloud of dust and you're good, right? Whereas now it's more like, Willie, there's my guy, Willie. What's up, buddy? Whereas now it's like you have to pass 30 times a week, right? 504 passes for the team that passed the least. I'll take that. That's volume. That's opportunity. That's something that you're going to get with Ladd McConkey. So that's not necessarily why I have Brian Thomas Jr. over Ladd McConkey. If you look at his player profile, if you look at his performance when he was at the University of Louisiana, shout out to Bayou Bengal, my guy, he was neck and neck with Malik Neighbors. Yes, Malik Neighbors did it in volume, but if we're talking about big, spectacular touchdown plays and touchdown potential on a team and a program that is top 4 in air yards, top 4 in pass attempts, and a really good underrated quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, that is who I want. That's why I'm all in on Brian Thomas Jr. this year.
Well, what about McCaffrey's kid brother? He's going to Washington with Jaden Daniels, who everybody is in love with. Now, I worry about rookie quarterbacks, including my guy. And I'm not going to say what school he went to because I don't need to hear that Ohio State crap anymore.
Yeah, you should be worried about your quarterback. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, but no, bottom line is Jaden Daniels, we don't really know. We know he's got a strong arm. We don't know if he can read defenses. We don't know if he's going to stay healthy because he runs upright, and he does run a lot. But is McCaffrey going to be the wide receiver 2? I mean, McLaurin's almost assuredly going to be wide receiver 1 on that team, right?
Yeah, so Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, they're both handicapped by a player who, though he was great for fantasy football, he wasn't spectacular when it came to winning games, right? Jaden Daniels, I want to say my favorite attribute that he has as a quarterback is the touch throws. Not his running profile, but the touch throws, the touch that he finishes on those passes, right? I'm not going to say he's a Joe Milton or a Drake May and can throw the ball 100 yards. I haven't seen that from him. But if we're talking about reading a defense, you're right. We don't know if he can read a defense, but that the LSU offense is the closest thing to a pro-style offense than a lot of these other quarterbacks.
And Alabama's a pro-style defense.
Exactly.
And he had to face Alabama every year.
Yeah, and he did his thing. So I'm when it comes to Jaden Daniels fade, I think the only thing I dislike about Jaden Daniels is he wasn't drafted by my Patriots. Only thing I dislike about him. Some of the three favorite prospects I had were Luke McCaffrey, Ben Sinnott, and Jaden Daniels. They all went to the Commanders. I might be changing this into a burgundy Commanders jersey very, very shortly. I really did like that rookie class that they brought. But I think Jahan Dotson is better than what we saw last year, and he was handicapped by the Wolf, Sam Howell. He was handicapped by him.
I like Sam Howell.
He's great for fantasy. He couldn't read a defense, and he didn't have time. I like the new coaching, the entire new coaching staff there. I absolutely love. I think Austin Eckler is being slept on and faded way too much, and the disrespect needs to stop here. It really does.
Brian Robinson's a pretty damn good running back.
I think both of them are being disrespected.
Well, do you think that they're going to be a two-headed monster a la Detroit with different roles? I mean, because Eckler, I agree. I think people are sleeping on him because his efficiency took a huge hit last year.
Well,
his
efficiency was down. He was hurt. He was upset. He wasn't happy with the opportunity.
I mean, do you think that Brian Robinson Jr. can be the David Montgomery to Austin Eckler's Jahmyr Gibbs?
I'm glad you said that. We are seeing the NFL transition in where multiple teams are going with the 1A, 1B approach as opposed to the clear-cut bell cow and handcuff situation. I love that you said that. I want to invest in that running game. I want to invest in that running room. They're going to play very, very good defense under Dan Quinn. Very, very good defense under Dan Quinn. They're going to play a good style of offense where they're trying to control the rock. I think they finished second in the division. I think they're going to leave the division with 10 wins. The best thing Dallas had last year was their defense, and the defense lost that. So that's 2 guaranteed wins for Washington and Philadelphia. They might split with, the Cowboys might split with the Giants, but yeah, I'm all in on every watch. If I can get a stack or a lineup in Drafters Fantasy, use promo code DISCO. It'll double your initial deposit up to $100.
Hey. Explain stack. Handcuff basically says, I'm taking this player in case this other player goes down. Yeah. And one of the great handcuffs at the beginning of this year was Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. Okay, well, with Corum getting all the OTA snaps because Williams was injured, I'm not convinced that Corum isn't the starter, which makes Kyron Williams a second-round pick for a handcuff, which I think is a mistake. But a stack is something totally different than a handcuff. And we know what a stack is, but maybe some of our listeners don't. So
full circle moment right here. Full circle moment right here. I had to bring it back. This is why I'm brilliant. This is why I'm me. What round is Blake Corum being drafted in these best ball drafts?
Oh, I don't know, but it was like around 9 and 10 before.
Round 11 and 12.
Okay.
Full circle moment. And Kyron Williams is being drafted as a top 10 running back right now.
He was being drafted in the second round.
Yeah, as a top 10 running back. He's being drafted.
Is that still happening?
He's getting pushed towards the end of the third round, which makes me sad because that means Cooper Kupp is getting pushed to the very end of the second round, early third.
And I know you like him in the third.
I can't get him in the third the way I got him early on, but I'm very grateful for having him when I got him. But yeah, I 100% think that if I'm drafting in best ball tournaments right now, players I want to avoid are players coming off of injuries or players who are dealing with injuries. So Kyron Williams is somebody who, like, God forbid I'm wrong, he's somebody who I don't want any piece of, especially at the current ADP and value. If we're talking about ADP value, somebody who I can look for and aim for in between rounds 10 to rounds 12.
I'm taking Blake the Great.
Blake the Great, because there's so much from the University of Michigan. There's so much value in that round right there, and he's getting drafted around guys like Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson. Once again, full circle moment. We started off talking about why we kind of pushed the running back position, but we do our research, we do our homework, just like you guys do your research and homework. And you guys just know in PPR format, there's a lot of really, really good value later on in the running back position. Well, a lot later on in the running back position.
Well, real quick, I want to say, as far as with Kyren Williams, do you feel like Kyren will? And again, guys, I'm going to say one other thing. Look at the coaching staff. Look at these teams. These teams are not dumb. They have an investment in these players. And Kyren Williams is a hell of a player. We saw him do some really great things last year. But I feel like the Rams, Sean McVay, they looked at this situation where he was banged up quite a bit. He's not a big guy. He was banged up quite a bit, although he is a red zone just monster.
He's a good ball player.
He got banged up. So let's bring in Blake Corum in here, and maybe not at the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, it might be Kyren Williams, but towards the once the season starts to digress, and once you get into the middle of the season, you might see a situation where they're splitting series, where they're splitting carries a lot more. It may be a 60-40 split. Maybe getting closer to a 50-50 split. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the way I look at it is this way. Every year Kyren Williams has been a pro, he's come into the season with a foot problem. That's a major red flag for me. I didn't draft him at all last year. I paid the price. I ate my words. I was dead wrong. But I'm still sticking to my guns, and my guns is telling me this guy is coming in with another season with a foot issue, the same foot issue, a lingering issue. So the likelihood of him missing time doesn't benefit me, especially if I'm investing top 2, top 3 round capital on it, right? I much rather get somebody who I can depend on with a least volatile position on a week-to-week basis with a high enough ceiling that I'd rather invest there and get Corum later on, because any upside Corum presents is just extra money, right? In 20 rounds, if I'm getting Corum in round 11 and round 12, he's probably going to be my RB3, my RB4, but he can perform.
He's going to be your RB2.
Yeah, but he's going to perform as an RB1 with his upside, right?
Hey, if William
invest in RBs late.
If you look at Blake Corum, depending on what you believe in his weight, whether you believe his combine weight or his Michigan program weight, he is between 11 and 20 pounds heavier than Kyren Williams. Mm-hmm. He is faster than Kyren Williams based on 40 times. He is quick. If you look at his vision, Kyren Williams has good vision. Blake Corum has great vision. You go back and you look at that last drive that Michigan had against Alabama, as close to an NFL defense outside of the state, the thumb state, as close to an NFL defense as you're going to find. I mean, we were fortunate enough that we got defensive coordinators from John Harbaugh for the last 3 years. Okay, McDaniels and I can't remember the other guy's name, but we had some great defensive coordinators that implemented NFL-style defense at the university. So you look at that, and I got to believe that Blake Corum, nobody doubts, everybody seems to think Blake Corum is too small. This guy was a touchdown machine at Michigan, and it was because he has very good strength in his lower body. He's compact. He's short, so he hides behind those big offensive linemen, and he's so quick. I mean, again, watch that last Alabama drive, and you will see the capabilities there. That he had a 16-yard touchdown where he got hit, I think, 3 times and still got to the end zone. This guy, people are going to be surprised, and it's not Homer and me talking. I think this kid is going to be a special running back. I really do.
And the Rams did address the offensive line as well.
What did the Rams do? Well, what did the Rams do before Kyren Williams? Who was their running back? He was a pretty good guy.
Akers.
Yeah, Cam Akers. Yeah. And he got a ton of work. And then all of a sudden he's gone and Kyren Williams is there. And he got a ton of work. Well, I'm here to tell you, I think that Corum is a better back. I don't think Kyren Williams is a bad back, but 194 pounds, I'm sorry, that's a small back in the NFL. Everybody loves Devin A-Chain. I will not touch Devin A-Chain
What about
because
Jahmyr Gibbs?
Jahmyr Gibbs is 200 pounds. That's where I draw the line. Because Barry Sanders was 203 and Curtis Martin was 205, and both of them were very durable. Plus, Jahmyr Gibbs is not getting all the inside work. He does run in between the tackles, but the majority of the inside work is going to David Montgomery, who's a bigger back.
Yeah, they're getting Jahmyr in space. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, he still runs in between the tackles, but and he cuts between the tackles a lot. He'll start off tackle and cut back inside. But Jahmyr Gibbs is right at that line, 200 pounds. 188 pounds is tiny in the NFL. It really is tiny. And that's definitely. Now, I love A-Chain's speed and breakaway, big play. I think A-Chain's a great best ball player. I do not want to depend on him in a year-long league because.
And another thing too, everyone, you have to look at what the teams are doing, and the Dolphins went and drafted another running back this offseason.
But that's because they got a 33-year-old.
Exactly, because they got a 33-year-old running back, and then Devon A-Chain missed some time last year. So it's one of those situations where we have to look at too. What you got, Big Draft?
Nothing. I'm just enjoying I love being able to listen to other people's opinions because.
What do you have on A-Chain? What are your thoughts on him?
What are my thoughts on A-Chain in terms
because
of
I get a lot of
ADP?
people. Yeah. His draft ADP is through the roof right now. It's crazy.
No. Same with Kyren Williams. No, I don't want anything to do with it. Yes, I know the upside. I know the ceiling. But if you look at his overall performance last year as a running back, where did he rank? Right.
I don't know.
It wasn't the top 30. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
No,
I didn't realize
he
that.
had some spike weeks. He had some spectacular weeks.
Hell of a spike week.
If we're talking about overall points from weeks 1 to week 18, the 17-game season, the fantasy playoffs and all that good stuff, he had a couple really good spike weeks, but he missed so much time at the beginning of the season. He missed time in the middle of the season. The reliability is not there. He comes in with a lot of red flags. So he's being drafted way ahead of, what he can actually put out or what he has put out. And he still has to compete with a Jalen Wright. He still has to compete with a Raheem Mostert. There's too many red flags for me to want to invest in a running back with that much volatility at that
three-headed committees. Yeah, I agree. Hey, listen, guys, this has been so great. We're already at the end of the show. It is already 3 minutes to the clock down, and
I'll give you guys an extra 5 minutes if you guys want to keep talking.
Well, Disco, you got a show coming up, so we got.
It's scheduled for 8:05. Don't.
Oh, okay. I thought it was scheduled for right after ours.
Well, we're good. Oh,
okay. I'm willing to keep going. Tip,
I am definitely willing to keep going. And Disco, I have a coin right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. This is heads. This is tails. It's a quarter. I'm going to flip this coin, and then whatever it is, I'm going to ask you that question because and it's tails. So I'm going to ask you about your Patriots.
Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Yes or
no? So rule number 1 in the Big Draft Energy 10 Draft Commandments: don't be a homer. Do not be a homer.
You're not going for the rookie wide receivers in New England?
Demario Douglas, because I like his value in ADP. I think Drake May I'll get a little bit of access to, and I'll get a little bit of exposure to Drake May and Javon Baker. Hunter Henry, I like. If I'm looking at the Patriots and I'm thinking about a standalone player, if I'm not building any correlation, Hunter Henry makes the most sense. Ramondre Stevenson wants to be the guy. He wants to be the feature back as well. They're going to try to implement that Cleveland style running game, but they don't have that Cleveland style offensive line where it's smash mouth in your face, right? You don't bring in an Antonio Gibson and expect not to utilize him. I think where Stevenson's going, it's a 50-50 toss-up, just like your coin toss, right? He's either going to be really good or really bad, but based off of where he's going, there's so much talent around him, like Zamir White, who has top RB. I think Zamir White can be a top 5 RB this year. I will start drafting Zamir White as my RB1 in these best ball drafts every single time. Him or Pacheco. And
who's going to start a quarterback for Zamir?
Gardner Minshew is perfectly fine.
I love Minshew, but O'Connell's listed as the number 1 right now, isn't he?
I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at what Gardner Minshew did last year, it was absolutely spectacular. And not just in terms of fantasy production, because he did help a lot of teams, especially in super flexes, but I'm talking about keeping that team together without Jonathan Taylor, without Anthony Richardson. They missed a bunch of guys a whole bunch of weeks. Their O-line was hobbled. Their defense lost so many good players throughout the season, and Gardner Minshew kept them in that. And he was very reliable. He was accountable. Surely it could have been due to the tutelage of Shane Steichen, but realistically, the quarterback of the Raiders needs to be Gardner Minshew. You don't pay him that kind of money and not expect to use him. I mean, Aiden O'Connell, sure, it's his job until he loses it, but I feel like he's going to lose it very, very fast.
Well, as a resident Raiders fan, I will say that whenever they got Gardner Minshew, I was very, very, very happy. Not any slight towards Aiden O'Connell at all. I like Aiden O'Connell. I think he still has a lot more development to get under his belt. But I will say that Gardner Minshew, it was a for lack of a better term, it was a shit show last year with the Raiders organization towards the beginning of the year. Towards the middle, the end of it, they started to figure things out, and we saw that. We saw what they started to put on the field, but when they got Gardner Minshew, man, I was so happy.
Hey, Evan agrees with you about Zamir White, but he also it's on the screen now. He doesn't like that Antonio Gibson signing because, again, to me, I don't think Antonio Gibson signing is a death knell for Ramondre Stevenson. No. There's so many backs that are in a shared time zone. I think Gibson's going to take away some valuable third down snaps. I do. I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be fresher for the goal line snaps because he's not going to have to carry the ball the whole time. Now, the question is, how's the offensive line? What's the coaching staff? There's so many changes in New England. They could be really good, or they could be really bad. I think most people are expecting bad, but it would not surprise me if New England plays better than people think. It's just that they're in a very tough division.
I would say in New England. So to go based off of SoCal Ball Nerds assessment, bang on. I've done 107 real money best ball drafts. Guess how much exposure I have to Antonio Gibson? Zero. Absolutely none. Guys like Jalen Wright, Kamani Vidal, they're going around him. Brian Robinson's going around him as well, based off of ADP. There's way too much good value that I like around there, and even past where he's going in the board more than I like Antonio Gibson. So yeah, I'm right with you, buddy. Don't like Antonio Gibson. I think the only thing you want to invest in New England this year is Javon Baker, Demario Douglas, Hunter Henry.
Okay, so
no Tyquan Thornton?
No, absolutely not.
So
think about it. They got Juju Smith-Schuster as well. They got Kendrick Bourne. They got KJ Osborne.
And you don't know how it's going to play out till the preseason.
There's 8 wide receivers in that room.
There's a
right?
lot.
So Demario Douglas screams ceiling play. Javon Baker screams consistent, somebody who to invest in. Definitely in your dynasties, definitely invest in him because, like, big picture, he's got superstar written all over him. He seems like he's reliable everywhere.
And Drake May is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL.
100%. Drake May is one of those guys where if you like take Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and somehow make a football baby, it's Drake May. It's Drake May, but he's just not experienced. He hasn't had the right tutelage at North Carolina. He's not there yet. But athletically, he's absolutely spectacular. I've been a Patriots fan my entire life. The best thing to ever happen to me as a Patriots fan is when Mac Jones got traded to Jacksonville.
Okay,
I saw you say that.
Hey, I got to ask you something before Tipp goes off on me. You mentioned Kamani Vidal, and I love Kamani Vidal this year. Now, the thing I want to bring up is a lot of people are so enamored with this year's tight ends. You like Theo Johnson. Ben Sinnott gets talked about. Bowers gets talked about, even though he went to the wrong place, in my opinion. Eric All. You like Eric All, who's Michigan guy. So was a Michigan guy. Then he went to tight end university. Mm-hmm. But also people are talking about these quarterbacks like they're the saviors. You got Laporta and MHJ. Everybody thinks MHJ and Malik Neighbors are going to be instant superstars. Rookie quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends do not typically explode. J.C. Stroud is an outlier. Sam Laporta is an outlier. They just don't happen. The position that explodes in the rookie year is running back. Year after year, going back 40 years, rookie running backs succeed in the NFL. I got to say, I like Gus Edwards, but I think Kamani Vidal could be one of the top rookie running backs this year.
What's Kamani Vidal's ethnicity? Like, where's he from? What's his origin story? Because Vidal sounds like kind of like Spanish, kind of like, I don't know. Anyway,
Kamani sounds Asian to me.
Okay, so whatever language Kamani Vidal is the direct translation for Isaiah Spiller 2.0.
You don't like him then?
I'm going to draft him because it makes sense to draft him. Do I love the pick? No. Last time I was this hype about a rookie running back for the LA Chargers, it was Isaiah Spiller, and that ended absolutely terribly.
But that wasn't with Harbaugh and Roman, who you guys seem to think is going to have a good running game.
Yeah, I think Gus Bus, and I think Vidal's going to get involved somewhat.
So are we just throwing J.K. Dobbins out the window here?
His name is just kidding.
Think about it. He tore an Achilles.
I know. But I mean, I will say this. I mean, we've seen guys tear Achilles before. They try and come back. I'm just saying.
You've never seen a running back.
I'm not telling you.
Never seen a running back come back from an Achilles injury.
I mean,
never.
Why would they? I'm just curious to why would they go and sign him? Greg Roman, Gus Bus, Detroit. Baltimore. I'm just curious about that.
Tip, do me a favor.
It's something that at the end of the draft, I will take a shot on that.
Do me a favor. Look up what his signing bonus was.
Wasn't it $500,000?
No.
Oh, I thought it was $500,000.
Take away a zero.
50,000. I think they're on. I think he's got $500,000 guaranteed though. I think he does. But regardless, $500,000 is nothing in the NFL.
You got to follow the money.
Away money.
The running back position in particular, if you want to know how to project a good running back, see who's a player playing on or trying to get a second contract from his rookie contract. If you follow the money and if you follow that trend, a player who is trying to get the bag at the running back position, who is in his third or fourth year trying to sign the bag, that's where the running back production is. So follow the money, follow the trail, and that's how you find running back production this year. Same thing happened last year, same thing happened the year before.
So you wouldn't even waste a pick on him at the end of the round, at the end of the draft?
Not unless. Okay, so here's the thing. The only way I'll ever invest in J.K. Dobbins is if it's too late in my best ball drafts. And the way it would be too late is we see him in a preseason game and he runs a 4.22 speed, goes 80 yards, doesn't look like he's hobbled, looks super healthy, hurdles 3 guys. That's the only way I draft J.K. Dobbins, unless I see him play ball or unless there's like murmurs in training camp.
So it can't be not never because we haven't seen it yet.
Well, it would be too late for me to invest in him then because his value is as good as it's going to get, right? So it can either go up, and I'm not willing to pay up when everybody else, all 180,000 other drafters who took that gamble on him, when they have that value, because I'm not going to have an up on them. So it doesn't make sense for me to invest him at that point in my best ball tournaments. Speaking of my best ball tournaments, I'm queued up in the drafters 2.5 million. We need one more person to enter that draft. It's at 11 out of 12. Enter the draft. Once we fill up that draft, we're going to go live on our YouTube channel. Oh, our draft has filled. Thank you, fellas.
So we're going to say goodbye then.
Yes,
but before we go,
goodbye. See you later.
Yeah. Hey, go find Big Draft headquarters to follow him and watch his mock draft, because he's going to show you what he's going to put into practice what he's preached all day. And next week we've got Surf Football, Mike from Surf Football. He's going to tell us about some new games he's introducing this year. And I think he's going to be at the Expo. Unfortunately, Tip will not be this year. He was going to. He had some financial situations come up. So if anybody out there wants to get Tip to the Expo and buy his ticket, I'm sure he would go, because I'll give him a room to sleep in. But he will be going. He's saving for the year after. So that's us for tonight. Tip, you going to take us out?
Let's
I got the
go. Let's
101.
do it.
I got the 101.